In the heart of the African savanna lay the small village of Zango, nestled between hills and thick forests. The village bustled with life. Children played in the dusty streets, women sold fresh produce at the market, and men worked tirelessly in the fields. It was a close-knit community where every face was familiar, and trust bound the villagers like family. Among them lived Salima, a widow with 2 young children. Life hadn't been kind to her since her husband's passing. Her small hut barely stood against the seasonal rains, and her children often went to bed hungry. Despite her struggles, Salima was respected for her resilience and hard work. Salima had a peculiar way of earning a living. She roamed the village with a cart full of shiny aluminum buckets, colorful bowls, and wooden spoons. In exchange for these, she collected old clothes, worn-out shoes, and discarded items. It wasn't much, but it kept her afloat. One day, while setting up her cart near the village square, Salima noticed a stranger watching her from the edge of the market. The man was tall and cloaked in a faded brown robe. His piercing eyes followed her every move. Feeling uneasy, Salima hurriedly packed her things and left. That night, as Salima lit her kerosene lamp, she heard a knock at the door. Opening it cautiously, she found the same man standing there. "Do not be afraid," he said, his voice smooth yet chilling. "I have a proposition for you." "What kind of proposition?" Salima asked, gripping the door tightly. The man stepped closer, holding out a small pouch. Inside were gold coins that gleamed in the dim light. "I will give you more of these," he whispered, "if you bring me as many panties as you can. The older, the better." Salima blinked in confusion. "Panties? Why would you want those?" The man smiled, his teeth shining unnaturally white. "That is not your concern. Do this for me, and you will never know hunger again." The promise of wealth tempted her. Thinking of her children, she nodded hesitantly. "I will do it." From that night, Salima's routine changed. The next morning, Salima moved through the village as usual, but now her trade came with a new request. "I'll take your old clothes and shoes," she said with a smile. "But if you have panties, worn or torn, bring them too. I'm collecting them for a charity project in the city." The villagers, trusting her, didn't ask questions. They admired Salima's dedication to helping others despite her own poverty. Soon, her cart overflowed with not only clothes and shoes but also piles of panties. Every evening, Salima would sort through the collection and carefully pack the panties into a sack. As promised, the strange man would appear at her door after sunset. He would take the sack and leave a pouch of gold coins in its place. At first, Salima felt a sense of triumph. She could finally afford proper meals for her children. She repaired her hut and bought new clothes. For the first time in years, life seemed hopeful. But soon, strange things began to happen in Zango. Conflict. The village, once vibrant and harmonious, began to change. Farmers noticed their crops withering overnight. Livestock disappeared mysteriously. People grew restless and fearful as illnesses spread among families who had always been healthy. At night, Salima's dreams were haunted by whispers and shadowy figures. She would wake up drenched in sweat, her heart pounding. The gold coins, once a source of joy, now felt like a burden. One afternoon, as Salima walked through the market, she overheard a group of women talking in hushed tones. "Have you noticed how everything started going wrong after Salima began collecting clothes?" one of them said. "She's always been poor," another added. "Where did she suddenly get so much money?" Salima's stomach churned with guilt. She rushed home, locking herself inside her hut. The coins felt heavy in her hands, and she couldn't shake the feeling that her secret deal was at the heart of the village's suffering. Journey 1. Fateful evening, curiosity and guilt drove Salima to follow the strange man. She waited until he left her home with the sack of panties and trailed him through the forest. The moonlight cast eerie shadows as she walked, her heart pounding with every step. Deep in the woods, Salima stumbled upon a clearing. There, the man stood beside a roaring fire, chanting in an unfamiliar language. Around him, the panties were strung on a line like flags, fluttering in the night breeze. He sprinkled a dark powder over them, and the flames leapt higher. Salima gasped as she realized what was happening. The man was using the villagers' belongings for dark rituals. Each item carried a piece of its owner's spirit, and he was harnessing their energy to grow his power. Before she could retreat, the man turned, his eyes glowing red. "You shouldn't have come here," he hissed. "I didn't know what you were doing," Salima stammered. "I just wanted to feed my children." "Your greed has helped me more than you know," he said, his voice echoing unnaturally. "But now that you've seen too much, I cannot let you leave." Salima's heart raced as the man raised his hands, summoning dark shadows from the fire. She turned and ran, branches clawing at her as she fled through the forest. Back in the village, Salima gathered a few trusted elders and confessed everything. At first they were furious, but seeing her genuine remorse, they decided to help her stop the strange man. Together, they devised a plan. The villagers would distract the man while Salima destroyed his ritual site. Armed with courage and the hope of redemption, Salima led the group into the forest. Climax. The villagers approached the clearing with torches and drums, chanting loudly to draw the man's attention. Startled, he turned to face them, his red eyes blazing with anger. "You dare to challenge me?" he roared. While the villagers kept him occupied, Salima crept to the line of panties and began tearing them down. The fire dimmed with each garment she removed, and the shadows weakened. Realizing what was happening, the man lunged toward her, but the villagers blocked his path. They threw their torches into the fire, disrupting his ritual. With a final, desperate cry, Salima grabbed the last of the panties and threw them into the flames. The fire erupted in a blinding light, consuming the man and his dark magic. When the smoke cleared, the clearing was silent, and the strange man was gone. Resolution. The village slowly returned to normal. The crops flourished again, livestock returned, and the villagers' health improved. Though Salima's actions had brought harm, her bravery had also saved them from a greater evil. Humbled, Salima gave away her remaining gold to the villagers as a gesture of repentance. She returned to her simple life, but with a newfound sense of purpose. From that day on, the tale of Salima and the strange man became a cautionary story in Zango. It was a reminder that greed and desperation could lead even the best of people down dark paths, but also that redemption was always possible. The moral of the story: greed has a high price. Wanting easy money can lead to bad decisions that harm not only you, but others too. This story teaches us to avoid greed, take responsibility for our actions, and be cautious when making decisions.